Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming stood in the empty hallway of the Terran embassy on Centauri Prime. His footsteps echoed off the metal walls as he walked toward his office one last time. For 300 years, humans had worked from this building. Now it was time to leave forever. Outside the embassy, crowds of aliens filled the streets. They came from every corner of the galaxy. The tall, blue-skinned Centaurians stood next to the small, furry Keith people. Flying creatures from the gas giant worlds hovered above the crowd. All of them were shouting and making noise. They wanted the humans to stay, but it was too late. Chen packed the last of his papers into a metal box. The Galactic Council had made their choice 3 days ago. The vote was close but clear enough. Humanity was too dangerous to stay in civilized space, too unpredictable, too willing to fight when others wanted peace, too quick to explore when others wanted safety. The irony made Chen laugh, but it was not a happy laugh. The same aliens who voted them out were now begging them not to go. They stood outside his building with signs written in 100 different languages. All the signs said the same thing in different words. Please stay. Chen walked to his office window and looked down at the crowd. A Centaurian news reporter was interviewing a Keth merchant. The merchant's fur was standing up straight with worry. Chen could not hear the words, but he knew what they were talking about. Everyone was talking about the same thing these days. What would happen when the humans left? The humans had been part of galactic society for only 400 years. That was nothing compared to species like the ethereals, who had been traveling space for 10,000 years. But in those 400 years, humanity had become something nobody expected. They had become necessary. It started small. Human engineers were good at fixing things. They did not mind getting their hands dirty with work that other species found boring. When a space station needed repair, humans did it. When a planet's weather control system broke down, humans figured out how to fix it. When trading ships needed better engines, humans built them. Other species had their own skills. The Centaurians were excellent at art and philosophy. The Keith were natural traders who could make deals across vast distances. The gas world flyers could navigate through dangerous nebulae better than anyone. But humans? Humans were the ones who kept everything running. Chen remembered his first day as ambassador. 20 years ago, the previous ambassador had warned him about something important. Never let them see how much they need us, the old man had said. The moment they realize we hold everything together, they will fear us, and fear makes people do stupid things. Now, Chen understood what he meant. The fear had finally won. The door to his office opened. His assistant, Maria Santos, walked in carrying a data pad. She was one of the last humans still on the planet. Tomorrow she would be on a ship heading home too. Sir, we have a problem, Maria said. The orbital stations are reporting system failures. 3 of them have already lost main power. Chen was not surprised. The orbital stations around Centauri Prime were marvels of engineering. They processed raw materials from the asteroid belt and turned them into everything the planet needed. Food, water, air, energy, it all came from those stations. And every single one of them had been designed and built by human companies. Have they tried to fix them? Chen asked. They are trying, but they do not have the technical knowledge. The Centaurians who worked on the stations were mostly supervisors. The actual maintenance was always done by human crews. Chen nodded. It was the same story everywhere. Humans did not just work alongside other species. They worked underneath them in the background, keeping the complicated systems running while others took credit for the results. What about the maintenance contracts? Chen asked. All voided as of yesterday. Galactic Council order. No human company is allowed to work in council space anymore. Chen looked out the window again. The crowd was getting bigger. Someone had set up speakers and now he could hear what they were saying. It was not good. The hyperspace lanes are becoming unstable, a Centaurian official was telling the crowd. Without human astrogators to maintain the navigation beacons, we may lose contact with the outer colonies. Another voice joined in. This one belonged to a Keth trader. My cargo ship tried to jump to the Vega system this morning. The lane was so unstable that we almost ended up inside a star. We had to turn back. Chen turned away from the window. He had heard enough. The collapse was starting faster than anyone had expected. The galaxy's transportation network was failing, and they had only been gone for 3 days. "Maria, how many evacuation ships are still in the system?" 12, sir, but they are all full. The last one leaves in 6 hours. Good. Make sure every human is on those ships. No one stays behind, no matter what offers they make." Maria nodded and left the office. Chen went back to his packing. There was not much left to do. Most of the important documents had been destroyed or taken already. The technical manuals, the maintenance schedules, the system passwords, all of it was going back to human space. He picked up a framed photo from his desk. It showed him shaking hands with the Zentorian Prime Minister 5 years ago. They were celebrating the opening of a new water treatment plant. The plant was designed by humans, built by human workers, and run by human technicians. But in all the news reports, only the Zentorian officials got credit. Chen put the photo in his bag. It would serve as a reminder of how they had been treated, useful when needed, invisible when convenient, and dangerous when they became too successful. His communicator beeped. The message was from Admiral Jackson, commander of the human evacuation fleet. "All embassy staff report to Transport 7 immediately. We leave in 2 hours." Chen took one last look around his office. On his desk, the communication device was blinking with incoming messages. Dozens of them. All from alien governments, asking for help, begging for technical assistance, offering money and trade deals if humans would just stay a little longer. He turned off the device without reading the messages. It was too late for bargains now. Chen picked up his bags and walked toward the door. In the hallway, he passed the empty offices of his staff, the trade attaché's office, where deals worth billions of credits had been negotiated, the cultural liaison's office, where humans had tried to build bridges with alien societies, the technical advisor's office, where the real work had been done, the unglamorous job of keeping civilization running. All empty now. Outside the embassy, Chen pushed through the crowd toward the transport landing pad. Aliens grabbed at his clothes, shouting questions and pleas in languages he did not understand. But he understood the tone. They were scared. As his transport lifted off from Centauri Prime, Chen looked down at the planet one last time. Smoke was rising from several of the orbital stations. Emergency lights flashed red across the massive structures. The evacuation of humanity was not even complete yet, and the galaxy's infrastructure was already failing. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Estimated arrival at the fleet staging area, 18 hours. From there, we jump to the outer rim colonies." Chen closed his eyes and tried to sleep. When he woke up, he would be in human space, among people who understood what they had really lost. Not just workers or technicians or engineers. They had lost the foundation that held everything together. Captain Zara Thelvox of the Zentorian Space Navy stood on the bridge of her ship, staring at the navigation display with growing alarm. The hyperspace lane that connected her home system to the Rigel trade hub was showing dangerous instabilities. What should have been a routine cargo run was turning into a nightmare. "Navigation, what is our status?" she asked her helmsman, a young Zentorian named Kex. "Captain, the lane is fluctuating beyond safe parameters. The navigation beacon at Checkpoint 7 is offline, and Checkpoint 12 is broadcasting error. Codes I have never seen before." Zara felt a cold weight in her stomach. 6 months had passed since the humans left galactic space, and the problems were getting worse every day. At first it had been small things. A broken recycling unit here, a malfunctioning gravity generator there. Things that seemed minor until they started adding up. "Can we make the jump anyway?" Zara asked. "I would not recommend it, Captain. Without proper beacon guidance, we could emerge anywhere, or nowhere." Behind them, the ship's communication officer spoke up. "Captain, I am receiving distress calls from multiple ships in the lane. 3 freighters have gone missing in the past week. 2 more are stranded between jump points." Zara cursed in her native language. The hyperspace lanes were the arteries of galactic civilization. They connected thousands of star systems across the spiral arm, allowing ships to travel vast distances in a matter of days instead of centuries. But maintaining them required constant work. The navigation beacons had to be calibrated every few months. The hyperspace generators needed regular maintenance. The quantum field alignments had to be checked and adjusted by skilled technicians. All of that work had been done by humans. The door to the bridge opened, and Zara's first officer entered. Dex Coro was older than most Centaurians, his blue skin marked with the silver lines that showed his age and experience. He carried a data pad and did not look happy. "Captain, I have the latest reports from Fleet Command. The situation is worse than we thought." "How much worse?" 17 major trade routes are now considered unsafe for civilian traffic. The military convoy system is overwhelmed trying to escort merchant ships through the unstable lanes, and that is just in our sector. Zara took the datapad and read through the reports. Each one told the same story. Navigation beacons failing, hyperspace generators breaking down, ships getting lost in the void between stars. The infrastructure that connected their civilization was falling apart piece by piece. "What about the technical manuals?" Zara asked. "The humans must have left some documentation." "They did, but it is not enough. The manuals explain what to do, but not how to do it. They assume knowledge that our people do not have. It is like giving someone a recipe for cake, but not explaining what an oven is or how to use it." Zara understood the problem. For generations, other species had been content to let humans handle the technical details. The humans were good at engineering, so they built the systems. They were good at maintenance, so they kept things running. They were good at training, so they taught others just enough to operate the equipment, but not enough to truly understand. It had seemed like a perfect arrangement. Each species contributed what they were best at. The Xentorians provided art and culture. The Keth managed trade and commerce. The gas world dwellers handled exploration and scouting. The humans took care of the boring technical work that nobody else wanted to do. Now they were all paying the price for that division of labor. "Sir, incoming message from Vrextar," the communication officer announced. Vrextar was one of the major agricultural worlds in the sector. It fed almost 1 billion people across dozens of star systems. Zara had a feeling she did not want to hear this message. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was strained with desperation. "It belonged to Administrator Glix, the Vrex in charge of planetary operations. This is Vrextar control to any ship in range. We have a cascade failure in our atmospheric processing network. Oxygen levels are dropping planet-wide. We need immediate technical assistance." Zara felt her heart sink. Vrextar was not just any agricultural world. It was a terraformed planet, transformed from a barren rock into a garden world through advanced atmospheric engineering. The processors that maintained its breathable atmosphere were incredibly complex machines that required constant monitoring and adjustment. Machines that had been designed and maintained by human engineers. "Vrextar Control, this is Captain Thelvox. What is the nature of your emergency?" "The quantum atmospheric processors in sectors 4 through 7 have gone offline. We have tried to restart them using emergency protocols, but they will not respond. We have perhaps 2 months of stored oxygen reserves." After that, Administrator Glix did not need to finish the sentence. Without the processors, Vrextar would slowly lose its atmosphere. The planet would return to being the dead rocket had been before terraforming, and nearly 1 million Vrex would suffocate. "Do you have any human technical staff remaining?" Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. "Negative. The last human engineers left 3 months ago under Galactic Council evacuation orders. We have the technical manuals they left behind, but our people cannot understand them. The systems are too complex." Zara closed her eyes and tried to think. Across the galaxy, similar emergencies were happening every day. Planets losing their life support systems, space stations falling out of orbit, entire star systems being cut off from the rest of civilization as the hyperspace network collapsed. The humans had not just been workers or technicians. They had been the foundation that everything else was built on. And the Galactic Council had voted to remove that foundation without understanding what would happen when it was gone. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "there is something else you need to see." He handed her another data pad. This one contained intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The news was getting worse by the day. The Kethvar Empire was facing multiple city collapses as their anti-gravity generators failed. The warlike Scaran were stranded in their home system because their exotic matter reactors had gone critical. Even the mighty ethereals, beings of pure energy who considered themselves superior to all organic life, were suffering containment matrix failures. Every major civilization in the galaxy was facing the same crisis. Their technology was failing, and they did not have the knowledge to fix it. The humans had not just left. They had taken with them centuries of accumulated wisdom, experience, and understanding that could not be replaced by reading manuals or watching training videos. "Captain, what are your orders?" Kex asked from the navigation station. Zara looked at the hyperspace lane display again. The instabilities were getting worse. Soon, this route would be completely impassable. Her ship would be trapped in this system, unable to travel to other stars, cut off from the rest of galactic civilization. "Set course for the Sol relay station," she ordered. "Captain, that station has been abandoned since the human evacuation." "I know, but maybe we can find something there. Technical records, maintenance logs, anything that might help us understand how these systems work." As her ship turned toward the abandoned human facility, Zara thought about the irony of their situation. For 4 centuries, the galactic community had looked down on humans as newcomers, young, primitive, aggressive, not sophisticated like the older races who had been traveling the stars for millennia, but those older races had grown comfortable with their roles. The Zentarians made art. The Keth made deals. The ethereals contemplated the mysteries of existence. None of them wanted to get their hands dirty with the practical work of keeping civilization running. The humans had been happy to do that work. They built the infrastructure, maintained the systems, and trained just enough native workers to keep things operating. But they never shared the deep knowledge, the institutional memory, the cultural understanding that made them so good at what they did. Now that knowledge was gone, traveling with the human colony fleets toward the outer rim of the galaxy, and the civilization they left behind was discovering just how much they had depended on people they considered inferior. "Captain, we are receiving more distress calls," the communication officer reported. 17 ships requesting assistance with various system failures. "Can we help any of them?" "No, sir, we do not have the technical expertise." Zara nodded grimly. That was the problem facing everyone now. They were all in the same situation, dependent on technology they did not understand, trying to maintain systems they had never bothered to learn about. The galaxy was crumbling under the weight of its own ignorance, and the humans who could have saved them were light years away, building a new civilization that did not need the rest of them at all. High Architect Velthara floated in her meditation chamber, her crystalline form catching and refracting the soft light that filtered through the walls of her aerial city. As one of the ruling council of the Kethvar Empire, she had spent centuries perfecting the art of gravitational manipulation that allowed her people to build cities in the sky. Today, she was falling to her death. The city of Velandros had been her masterpiece. Floating 3 kilometers above the surface of Kethvar Prime, it housed nearly 2 million citizens in towers of living crystal that grew from platforms held aloft by anti-gravity generators. The generators were marvels of engineering that bent the very fabric of spacetime to create pockets of reversed gravity. They had been designed by human physicists 300 years ago. Now, 18 months after the human exodus from galactic space, those generators were failing one by one. The platform beneath Velthara's tower groaned and tilted as another generator went offline. Through her crystalline skin, she could feel the vibrations of panic spreading through the city as millions of her people realized what was happening. They were going to fall. Velthara's assistant, a younger Kethvar named Crystal, materialized beside her in a shower of refracted light. His form was flickering with stress, unable to maintain the stable crystalline structure that marked a calm mind. "High Architect, the engineering teams report complete failure in Sector 7 through 12. The gravitational field generators are experiencing quantum cascade failures. We have perhaps 6 hours before the entire city loses structural integrity." Velthara had expected this news, but hearing it still sent resonance patterns of fear through her crystalline matrix. 6 hours to evacuate 2 million people from a city floating in the sky. It was impossible. What about the backup generators? She asked, though she already knew the answer. They are showing the same failure patterns. The quantum field alignments are breaking down at the subatomic level. Our best physicists cannot understand why. Velthara knew why. The anti-gravity generators did not just bend gravity. They created stable bubbles in the quantum foam that underlies all reality. Maintaining. Those bubbles required constant micro-adjustments to compensate for the natural fluctuations in space-time itself. The adjustments had to be made every few hours, and they required an intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics that very few beings possessed. The humans who designed the system had possessed that understanding. They had trained Kethvar operators to perform the basic maintenance routines, but they had never shared the deeper knowledge of how the system actually worked. Why should they? The Kethvar were artists and philosophers, not engineers. They were content to let the humans handle the technical details while they focused on higher pursuits. Now that contentment was going to cost millions of lives. Hi, Architect, we are receiving reports from other sky cities. More Andros reports total system failure. They are attempting emergency landing procedures, but... Krystal's voice faded as they both understood what that meant. Emergency landing procedures, for a sky city, meant controlled falling. The cities were not designed to survive impact with the ground. They were too massive, too fragile. The best they could hope for was to slow the descent enough that some people might survive. How many cities are affected? All of them. Every sky city in the Empire is reporting generator failures. The pattern is identical. Quantum cascade collapse starting at the core and spreading outward. Velthara felt her crystalline form dim with despair. The Kethvar Empire consisted of 47 worlds, each with multiple sky cities. They were home to over 1 billion people who had never lived on solid ground. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that they could defy gravity forever. That assumption was about to be proven fatally wrong. What about the ground-based cities, the mining colonies? They are stable for now, but High Architect, those cities cannot support our population. Even if we could evacuate everyone from the sky cities in time, there is nowhere for them to go. Velthara floated to the observation deck of her tower and looked down at the surface of her world far below. The ground cities were tiny from this height, specks of light scattered across continents that her people had not walked on for generations. They had been built by other species as part of trade agreements, simple structures designed for beings who were content to be bound by gravity. The irony was bitter. The Kethvar had considered themselves superior to ground-dwelling species. They lived in the sky, masters of three-dimensional space, while others crawled on planetary surfaces like primitive animals. They had built a civilization of impossible beauty, cities of crystal and light that floated like dreams made real, and none of it could exist without human technology. High Architect, urgent message from the Scaran hegemony. Velthara was surprised. The Scaran were a warlike species that rarely communicated with the philosophical Kethvar, except through threats and posturing. They must be facing a crisis of their own to reach out for help. Put them through. The voice that came through the communication system was harsh and guttural, marked by the aggression that defined Scaran culture. But underneath the aggressive tone, Velthara could detect something she had never heard from a Scaran before: fear. This is War Leader Groktar of the Scaran Battle Fleet. We require immediate technical assistance. Our exotic matter reactors are going critical. We have lost 6 ships already, and the rest of our fleet is trapped in home system. Velthara almost laughed, but the sound would have been hollow and bitter. The mighty Scaran, who had conquered 6 star systems through military force, were asking the artistic Kethvar for help with engineering problems. War Leader, I regret to inform you that we are facing similar difficulties. Our sky cities are falling from the heavens. We have no technical expertise to offer. There was silence on the communication channel for several moments. When Groktar spoke again, his voice had lost some of its aggressive edge. The humans. This is because the humans are gone. It was not a question. Across the galaxy, every species was coming to the same realization. The humans had not just been workers or technicians. They had been the invisible foundation that held galactic civilization together. Without them, everything was falling apart. War Leader, have you attempted to contact the human colony fleets? Yes. We sent envoys to the Outer Rim territories, where they are building new settlements. The humans refuse to help. They say we made our choice when we voted to expel them from galactic space. Velthara was not surprised. The Galactic Council's decision to exile humanity had been driven by fear and prejudice. The older races had grown uncomfortable with human expansion, human innovation, human willingness to take risks that others considered too dangerous. They had convinced themselves that humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable to remain part of civilized society. Now they were learning the price of that decision. "Hi, Architect, we have another problem," Crystal announced. "The Ethereal Collective is requesting emergency assistance. Their containment matrices are failing." This news was even more shocking than the Scaran request for help. The Ethereals were beings of pure energy who had achieved a state of existence beyond physical form. They were thousands of years old and considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. They rarely spoke to lesser beings except to offer cryptic wisdom or philosophical observations. If even the Ethereals were in trouble, then the crisis was worse than anyone had imagined. What kind of containment matrices? The quantum field generators that maintain their energy patterns. Without them, the Ethereals will lose cohesion and fade into background radiation. Velthara felt her crystalline form pulse with shock. The Ethereals were supposedly immortal, beings who had transcended the limitations of physical existence. But even they depended on technology to maintain their state of being. Technology that, like everything else, had been built and maintained by humans. "Can we help them?" "Hi, Architect. We cannot even help ourselves. In 4 hours, this city will fall from the sky. We need to begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately." Velthara looked around her beautiful city one last time. The towers of living crystal caught the light and threw rainbows across the sky. The floating gardens where Kethvar artists had spent centuries creating sculptures from pure energy. The meditation chambers where philosophers had contemplated the nature of existence, while floating high above the mundane concerns of planetary surface dwellers. All of it would be rubble in a few hours. "Begin the evacuation," she ordered. "Contact every transport ship in the system. Prioritize the young and the elderly, and send a message to the human colonies." "Hi, Architect. Tell them that the Kethvar Empire formally apologizes for our support of the exile vote. Tell them that we understand now what we have lost, and tell them—" Velthara paused, her crystalline form dimming with shame. "Tell them that we are sorry. For everything." As evacuation sirens began to wail across the floating city, Velthara wondered if the humans would even bother to read their message. Why should they care about the problems of people who had rejected them? The Kethvar had voted to expel humanity from galactic space, convinced that they were better off without the aggressive, unpredictable humans disrupting their peaceful civilization. Now their peaceful civilization was falling from the Captain Sarah Torres stood on the observation deck of the orbital station New Horizons, watching the construction of humanity's newest colony world through the transparent aluminum viewport. 2 years had passed since the great exodus from galactic space, and the human settlements beyond the rim were thriving in ways that surprised even their builders. Below her, the planet designated as Haven showed the green and blue patterns of a world being carefully terraformed. Human engineering crews worked alongside automated systems to transform the atmosphere, while agricultural specialists seeded the continents with crops that would feed millions. In orbit around the planet, a network of stations processed raw materials from the asteroid belt, turning space rock into the building blocks of civilization. It was impressive work, made more remarkable by the fact that humanity was doing it, all without help from the galactic community that had expelled them. "Captain Torres, we have incoming ships on long-range sensors," announced her communications officer, Lieutenant Chen. "Configuration unknown, but they are broadcasting galactic Council identification codes Sarah was not surprised. This was the third diplomatic mission from the old galaxy in the past 6 months. Each time the requests had been more desperate, the offers more generous. Each time Sarah had sent them away with the same message. Humanity had moved on. How many ships? 12, sir. Mixed fleet composition. I am reading Zentorian Kethvar and... Wait, that cannot be right. What is it, Lieutenant? One of the ships is broadcasting ethereal collective codes, but the ethereals never leave their home system. They consider physical travel beneath their dignity. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The ethereals were beings of pure energy who claimed to have evolved beyond the need for physical form. They communicated through thought patterns transmitted across interstellar distances and considered themselves too advanced to deal directly with lesser species. If they had sent a ship to human space, the crisis in the old galaxy must be even worse than the previous reports had indicated. Any hostile movements? Negative, sir. They are maintaining standard diplomatic approach vectors and requesting permission to dock. Sarah considered her options. She could refuse to meet with them, as she had done with previous diplomatic missions. But the presence of an ethereal ship suggested that this delegation might be different. More desperate, perhaps, or more honest about what they really wanted. Grant them permission to dock, but full security protocols. I want Marines stationed at all access points. An hour later, Sarah sat in the station's main conference room across from the strangest collection of alien diplomats she had ever seen. The Zentorian representative, Ambassador Kex Thelvar, looked exhausted. His blue skin had faded to a sickly gray, and his usually perfect diplomatic composure was cracked with visible strain. Next to him sat Merchant Prince Tick of the Keth Confederation. The small furry being's whiskers twitched with nervous energy, and his trading robes were wrinkled and stained. Sarah had never seen a Keth who looked so disheveled. Their species prided itself on immaculate appearance and smooth business dealings. The Bao Kethvar delegate was even more shocking. High Coordinator Velnus was one of the few survivors of the Sky City collapses. Her crystalline form dim and fractured in places where emergency medical procedures had failed to fully repair damage from her city's crash landing. The proud aerial civilization of the Kethvar had been reduced to refugees living in ground-based camps. But most surprising of all was the ethereal presence. The being called itself Harmony of Distant Stars, and it appeared as a shifting column of blue-white energy contained within a portable matrix generator. The fact that it had taken physical form at all was unprecedented. Ambassador Thelvar spoke first, his voice carrying none of the smooth confidence that had once marked Zentorian diplomacy. Captain Torres, thank you for agreeing to see us. I know that our previous delegations have not been welcomed. They were sent away because they came here demanding help, while offering nothing in return. Sarah replied, You voted to expel humanity from civilized space. You called us too dangerous, too unpredictable. Why should we care about your problems now? Merchant Prince Tick leaned forward, his whiskers twitching faster. Captain, the situation has become desperate. Trade between star systems has virtually ceased. The hyperspace lanes are too unstable for regular commerce. My own trading empire has lost 70% of its routes. Entire sectors are cut off from the galactic economy. And that concerns us how? Sarah asked. We have established our own trade networks out here. We are dealing with species that the Galactic Council never even knew existed. We do not need your unstable infrastructure. High Coordinator Velna spoke for the first time, her crystalline voice ringing with harmonic frequencies that conveyed deep emotion. Captain Torres, my people are dying. Not just from the Sky City collapses, but from the failure of our life support systems. Our atmospheric processors, our water purification plants, our food synthesis networks. All of them were built with human technology. Without maintenance, they are shutting down one by one. You had our maintenance manuals, Sarah pointed out. You had training programs. What happened to your local technicians? We trained operators, not engineers, Velnus admitted. We taught our people to run the systems, not to understand them. The deep knowledge, the institutional memory, the intuitive understanding of how everything worked, that was all human knowledge. When your people left, it went with them. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. Across the galaxy, Alien civilizations had been content to let humans handle the technical details while they focused on what they considered more important work: art, philosophy, trade, conquest, anything except the boring job of keeping the machinery running. The ethereal presence pulsed with patterns of light that somehow conveyed meaning directly to Sarah's mind. When it spoke, the words appeared as thoughts rather than sounds. We have made a grave error in judgment. In our arrogance, we believed that consciousness was more important than competence. We valued wisdom over knowledge, philosophy over engineering. We forgot that even beings of pure energy require a foundation of physical reality to exist within. Your containment matrices are failing, Sarah guessed. Correct. The quantum field generators that maintain our energy patterns were designed by human physicists. As they break down, we are losing coherence. Several thousand of our kind have already faded into background radiation. We face extinction within a standard year. Sarah leaned back in her chair and studied the desperate faces across from her. These beings represented some of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, species that had ruled the stars for millennia. Now they sat before her like beggars, asking for help from the people they had exiled. "What exactly are you offering?" she asked. Ambassador Thelvar straightened slightly, trying to regain some diplomatic dignity. "Full reinstatement in the Galactic Council with permanent seats on the ruling committee. Complete autonomy for human-controlled systems. Exclusive. Trading rights to—" "Stop," Sarah interrupted. "You are offering us positions in a government that exiled us from a civilization that is collapsing. Why would we want any of that?" Merchant Prince Tick's whiskers drooped. "Then what do you want? Name your price. We will pay anything." Sarah stood up and walked to the viewport that looked out over the human colony. Ships moved between the orbital stations and the planet below, carrying settlers and supplies and the promise of a future built on humanity's own terms. "We do not want anything from you," she said finally. "We have built something better out here. New trade routes, new alliances, new technologies. We have learned to work with species that value cooperation over hierarchy, contribution over pedigree. But billions will die," High Coordinator Velnus pleaded. "Entire worlds will become uninhabitable. Civilizations that took millennia to build will crumble into dust." "Yes, they will," Sarah agreed. "And that is not our fault. You made this choice when you voted to exile us. You decided that you were better off without human involvement in your affairs. We are simply giving you what you asked for, the ethereal." Presence flared brighter, its patterns becoming more agitated. "You would let entire species go extinct out of spite?" Sarah turned back to face the delegation, her expression hard. "Not spite. Justice. For 4 centuries, humanity tried to be part of your galactic community. We contributed our skills, our knowledge, our innovations. We built your infrastructure, maintained your systems, solved your technical problems. And in return, you treated us as useful servants who should know their place." She walked back to the table and placed her hands on its surface, leaning forward to look each delegate in the eye. "We were never your equals in the Galactic Council. We were the help. Valuable when you needed something fixed. Ignored when it came time to make important decisions, and expendable when you decided we were becoming inconvenient. You want to know what we want? We want nothing from you. We are done being your maintenance crew." Ambassador Thelvar's composure finally cracked, completely. "Please, Captain Torres, I am begging you. Is there nothing we can do to earn your help?" Sarah Lowe. Admiral Marcus Chen stood in the command center of New Terra, the capital world of the Human Colonial Authority, reading reports from across the Outer Rim territories. 5 years had passed since humanity had been exiled from galactic space, and the transformation had been remarkable. Where once there had been empty star systems and unexplored nebulae, now there was a thriving network of human colonies connected by trade routes that spanned thousands of light years. The door to his office opened, and his aide, Commander Lisa, Park entered carrying a datapad. She looked excited about something which was unusual for the normally reserved officer. "Admiral, you need to see this. We just received a message from the old galaxy. It is unprecedented." Chen took the data pad and read the message header. It was from Administrator Yuki Sato, one of the few humans who had remained in galactic space to oversee the closure of human facilities. She was supposed to have left 3 years ago, but had volunteered to stay behind and document the collapse. For historical records, what does Sato have to report? Sir, the Galactic Council has officially dissolved. The last member species, the Keth Confederation, formally withdrew 2 days ago. There is no functioning interstellar government left in the old galaxy. Chen was not surprised by the news, but seeing it confirmed still carried emotional weight. The Galactic Council had existed for over 5,000 years, connecting hundreds of species across the spiral arm in the largest political entity in known space. Its dissolution marked the end of an era. What about the individual species? How are they managing? Commander Park turned the datapad to show a detailed breakdown of the situation. The numbers were sobering. The Zentorian Republic has fractured into 17 separate nation-states, each controlling only their home system. Trade between them has virtually ceased due to hyperspace lane instabilities. The Kethvar Empire has been reduced to ground-based refugee camps after the complete collapse of their sky cities. The Scaran hegemony lost their entire military fleet when their exotic matter reactors went critical simultaneously. Chen scrolled through the report, reading about civilization after civilization that had crumbled without human technical support. Some had managed partial recovery by reverting to older, less efficient technologies. Others had simply collapsed entirely, their populations scattered across the galaxy as refugees. What about the ethereals? That is the most shocking part, sir. The ethereal collective has gone completely silent. Their home system shows no energy signatures at all. Intelligence analysts believe the entire species may have faded into background radiation when their containment matrices failed. Chen felt a moment of sadness for the ancient beings who had considered themselves the pinnacle of evolved consciousness. They had achieved a state of existence beyond physical form, only to discover that even pure energy required a foundation of matter and technology to maintain coherence. Without human engineers to maintain their quantum field generators, they had simply dissolved. Any attempts at communication from the surviving species? Daily, sir. We receive hundreds of messages asking for technical assistance, offering various forms of payment or alliance. The tone has changed significantly from the earlier diplomatic missions. They are no longer trying to negotiate as equals. Most of the messages are simple pleas for help. Chen walked to his office window and looked out over the city of New Terra. The capital of the Human Colonial Authority had been built from the ground up using the most advanced human engineering techniques. The buildings were designed to be self-maintaining, with automated systems that could function for centuries without human intervention. The transportation networks were redundant and resilient. The life support systems could adapt to changing conditions without constant monitoring. It was everything the old galactic infrastructure was not: robust, reliable, and designed by people who understood that civilizations were only as strong as their foundations. Commander, what is the status of our expansion into the Andromeda region? Ahead of schedule, sir. The exploration fleets have established contact with 12 new species, and preliminary trade agreements are being negotiated, with 6 of them. The Vanguard colony ships are reporting successful settlement on 17 worlds. Chen smiled. While the old galaxy collapsed under the weight of its own neglect, humanity was building something new in the vast reaches of unexplored space. The species they encountered beyond the rim were different from the ancient civilizations they had left behind. These were younger races, still curious about the universe, still willing to learn and adapt. Most importantly, they were willing to work alongside humans as partners rather than treating them as sophisticated servants. Sir, there is one more thing you should see. Commander Park handed him another datapad. This arrived an hour ago from Captain Torres at Haven Station. Chen read the message quickly, then smiled. Captain Torres reported that 3 of the species humanity had encountered in the outer rim, the crystalline Nixari, the aquatic Delari, and the energy-based Lumori, had requested formal training exchanges with human technical academies. They wanted to learn human engineering techniques, not just how to operate human-built equipment. It was the kind of partnership that humanity had always hoped for in the old galaxy, but had never been offered. Commander, prepare a response to Captain Torres. Tell her that the Colonial Authority approves the training exchange program and authorize the construction of a new technical academy on Haven. As Commander Park left to relay the orders, Chen returned to reading Administrator Sato's final report from the old galaxy. The document was a comprehensive survey of the collapse, written with the careful precision of a historian recording the fall of civilizations. The report concluded with a personal note from Sato. Admiral, as I prepare to leave the old galaxy, for the last time, I find myself thinking about the lessons we have learned from this experience. The species that exiled us believed that wisdom was more valuable than knowledge, that philosophy was more important than engineering, that hierarchy was more effective than cooperation. They were wrong on all counts. Wisdom without knowledge is just opinion. Philosophy without practical application is just conversation. Hierarchy without competence is just tyranny. The old galactic civilizations fell because they confused sophistication with superiority, age with wisdom, and tradition with truth. They never understood that civilization is not a destination, but a process. It requires constant work, constant learning, constant adaptation. It requires people who are willing to get their hands dirty with the practical details of keeping society functioning. The humans were those people. When we left, we took with us not just technical knowledge, but the entire cultural foundation that made that knowledge possible. We took the curiosity that drives innovation, the pragmatism that solves problems, the humility that accepts failure and learns from it. The old galaxy had grown too comfortable, too set in its ways. The species there had assigned roles to each other thousands of years ago and never questioned whether those roles still made sense. The Zentarians made art. The Keth made deals. The Kethvar contemplated the sky. The ethereals transcended physical existence. And the humans? The humans kept everything running. When they decided they did not need us anymore, they discovered too late that need and want are different things. They may not have wanted our presence in their elegant hierarchical society, but they needed our competence to maintain the foundation that society rested on. Now they are learning what happens when the foundation crumbles. Their ancient civilizations are falling into ruin. Their people are suffering. Their proud achievements are turning to dust. And there is nothing they can do about it, because they never bothered to understand how any of it actually worked. Meanwhile, humanity has built something new in the Outer Rim, something better. We have created partnerships instead of hierarchies, cooperation instead of competition, innovation instead of tradition. We have found species that value what we bring to the table, not just what we can do for them. The old galaxy wanted us to be their maintenance crew forever. The new galaxy wants us to be their partners in building something greater than any of us could achieve alone. History will remember this as the moment humanity truly came of age as a galactic civilization. Not when we joined the Galactic Council, but when we walked away from it and built something better on our own terms. Chen finished reading and set the datapad aside. Outside his window, the sun was setting over New Terra, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the distance, he could see the lights of the orbital shipyards where the next generation of exploration vessels was being built. Ships that would carry humanity further into the unknown, seeking new worlds and new partnerships. Ships that would never return to the old galaxy unless it was as equals, not as servants. The intercom on his desk chimed softly. Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from the Nexari delegation. They are requesting a joint scientific expedition to investigate the dark matter streams in the Andromeda approach. Chen smiled and pressed the reply button. Tell them we accept. And Commander, schedule a meeting with the other Rim species. It is time to discuss the formation of a new interstellar alliance.